Welcome to Center Stage. My name is Mark Gordon. Aftermath follows two strangers as their lives become intrinsically bound together after a devastating plane crash. The film is based on real-life events of a mid-air collision and subsequent murder of Danish air traffic controller Peter Nilsson. Stay tuned as we go center stage with the creative team behind this powerful new drama, Elliott Lester and producer Eric Watson.
The film was produced by Protozoa Pictures, a company that I founded with Darren Aronofsky, and about 8 weeks before we started to shoot, they called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to come make a movie?" And I went and met Elliott. I think you were doing a music video.
Yes.
And I read the script, and 3 days later, I was on a plane to Columbus, Ohio.
I've been given the script by my agent, and he said, I have a French agent, Jerome, and he was like, you should read it, and I want you to have an open mind. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger in it? And I was like, okay, I'm open, I can be convinced. I couldn't believe how audacious the material was.
Right.
And brave. Often you get sent scripts about armored cars and thieves and ducks that speak, and this had real heart. It was so absolutely desolate and full of loss and grief, and I was just like, God, this is utterly miserable and airtight. I wonder how you make this film. So I was up for the challenge, and then also it was Arnold. What I knew about Arnold was like Get Me to the Chopper and Cohagen and things like that, and I'd always been a fan. And it was like, okay, well, it's Darren Aronofsky, who knows a thing or two about filmmaking. It's Arnold, who's $8 billion movie grossers, but making a very small, intimate film. It's either going to work or it's not. But I'd rather try and fail than not try at all.
He's extremely funny. And we've seen him as these action heroes, but now he's doing something that is it's definitely a different role for him.
I think that was one of the compelling things about why we said yes to making the movie, was here's Arnold wanting to do something different, move out of his comfort range. Let's go meet with him. Let's see, where he's at personally. And it was that meeting that really caused us to say yes, because we could see that he was committed to doing it.
Yeah, we went up to the house, and we got this phone call. And it's like, I'd met Arnold previously you do the director's lunch, and he kind of, he flirts with you, and he gets you all like, listen, I really want to be an actor, and he does that whole spiel. But then I had to go up to the house with Eric, and it's quite an event going up to Arnold's house, and he sits there, and you're led up to this beautiful back area where the fire's going, and there's
a donkey.
And a donkey. There's actually a pony. He has a miniature pony that walks around the house, and there's a plate of pastries, and he's cigars, coffee,
California governor flag.
So let's talk about the movie, and you sit there and you talk to this very gentle man, and he's incredibly disarming. And in a way that we weren't expecting, funny and intelligent. And he liked you. He liked Eric.
Are you saying that he didn't like you?
No, I didn't say that for a minute. But Arnold and I have become great friends. Actually, Eric and I have we have breakfast with Arnold a couple of times a month now. We're fixtures in the Arnold it's the old age entourage. It's octogenarian entourage.
But I loved him when, just going back to Pumping Iron, the George Butler film.
He talks about that constantly.
He does.
Yeah. Because the thing about when I sat down with him, I said, listen, buddy, you've been Conan and you've been all these amazing characters. I said, you can't come in and Lou Ferrigno me. You can't come in and put it there, because I promise you I won't do that. I want to be an actor. But in Pumping Iron, he's very proud of it, because I think he said to us that it was the first real. He takes it as it's the first real reality movie that was ever made, and he's quite honest when he says that he made a lot of the stuff up. I asked him that question about there's that scene when Arnold's saying, my mother called me in the night and she said that my father was dead, and what are you going to do? And of course I had to compete. I had to keep competing. And I said, Arnold, was that true that your father died? He goes, no, he died a year later. He goes, but I wasn't going to let Lou know that. But when you work with him, you see the brinkmanship. You see how he can manipulate you. I never felt manipulated by him, but you can see how that mind works.
Yeah, if you showed up in a professional way, he did. But if you didn't, then you were in trouble for sure.
Because he does seem like he has that playful quality about him.
He's great with the crew, and just really shows up and brings a lot of energy, and he's happy to be there.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves being on set.
So how did you approach the film?
In terms of,
well, was working on this film different than your other projects that you've worked on? So,
yes.
And also too, did you bring preconceived notions to the table, and then did they change?
I think in my first meeting with Arnold, I went in with, okay, what am I sitting down with? But within 5 minutes, it was, okay, this is the cleverest man in the world, with more ambition and more vigor than I've got in terms of that. But in terms of approaching the film, Arnold, you're the actor. You're going to act, and we're going to cast a wonderful cast around you. Look, we didn't have a lot of prep time. We had literally 6 weeks of prep.
Really?
We shot the movie in 22 days in an area that was completely unfamiliar to us. And we managed, collectively, Eric and I, managed to get a really wonderful cast. We had Scoop McNairy and Maggie Grace, and we went and we just shot the movie. We just went for it. We had 52 locations in 22 days, which sounds like a lot because it is a lot. So the approach was, we're at war. We're at war. But once you're in it, you're in it. What are you going to do? You got to make the movie.
And we got very lucky with Columbus, Ohio, which was just had the palette of Columbus was the palette of the film for us, essentially. So we utilized a lot of locations there that worked for us really well.
So Eric, do you approach every film differently? And how did you approach this one?
It comes down to the script, first and foremost, and then the cast and the director that you're building around that script and what you're going for. But it's the script that should motivate all of your decisions. What movie are you making? And so this one, I mean, like Elliott said, we had 6 weeks. We went to Columbus. We'd never been there, and we just had to jump in and make a movie. But it's no matter what's going on, our job is to keep our eye on the ball as we're going through that whole process. So it's the same job always, but the challenges are always different.
Seems like the material that you're always involved with is very intense. I mean, looking at your body of work. and I think yours as well. I mean,
I'm trying.
I'm
trying to make a light of the world.
I mean, do you enjoy doing a film like this as opposed to BLITZ? The big action feature.
They're very different. They're very different. Yeah, I mean, God, you know what? Do I enjoy? I enjoy all of it.
Because I would say that the first BLITZ is like a popcorn film, and
100%.
then something like this is more cerebral.
This is more cerebral. This is a more challenging film than BLITZ. This critically is more challenging because you're dealing with the unexpected. You're dealing with people with preconceived notions of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a fan base that knows Arnold for one or two things.
Well, that zombie film, like we talked
Maggie,
about. Maggie, because that was the first time that we're seeing a different...
And a divisive film,
it's
by the
like
way.
he's rebranding himself.
I'm re-energizing. I want to win an Oscar.
Why not? I mean...
I'm going to play a gay dad. Barry Jenkins is going to direct me in Moonlight 2.
So besides the time frame, what was the biggest challenge in making this film?
Do you want to tell the truth?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious challenge that we've been discussing of here's an actor playing a role that nobody's expecting, and neither are we, and so that is our primary challenge. How do we deliver that performance? How do we work with Arnold to deliver that performance? And I think the first day that he showed up was probably the day I was the most nervous, because I knew as soon as we started to roll film that I would know if we had a movie or not.
Oh, seriously? So
because how he shows up on that first day and how he's acting on that first day is going to set the tone for the whole thing. And I would say within half an hour, I was pretty relieved. Like, okay, we're going to be all right.
What was it about him that he did to make sure that you felt comfortable?
He's unbelievably prepared.
Unbelievably prepared.
So he would talk to me a lot about I used to be a bodybuilder and I'm all about the rep, and everything is repetition through form. So he would go over the script hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and we would go to in the suite, and we'd sit there and we'd go over the script and we'd pore over the ideas, and he flew in early to walk around the locations, you know, because he wanted, it's for him, it's the osmosis of it. He wants to connect with the character. There are no accidents with him. He's not a guy that riffs, you know. He doesn't do that. He wants to get it right. It's like a haiku with him. It's like over and over and over again. It's kind of amazing.
And he didn't have a lot of issues with the script, but when he did have an issue, he was right.
Yeah.
And the question he was asking would be a challenging question, but it was the right question. So I never felt like he was frivolous with his questions, but sometimes he'd be like, I don't understand what I'm doing here. And we would have to answer it for him because he was right in the question.
Well, we would say we don't understand either.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Just do it.
Just do it. Stop thinking, Arnold.
Yeah.
Well, do you think sometimes actors, because they're afraid to step out of a comfort zone, then that's when they raise those questions? And then also, how about you as a director and a producer to step out of your comfort zone?
Well, I can't say all actors are the same. I can say that the more actors do, and over time they develop a shtick, and that shtick sometimes becomes a force of habit, and they get comfortable with that force of habit because people come to expect them. There's like, you know, I think Robert De Niro is suffering with it a little bit at the moment. You know, he's doing the same thing over and over again. How you get them out of that, how you get them, as a director, it's to make sure you push them out of the comfort zone while still feeling safe. Like, no one's going to do something for you if you bully them. That's not how you get something out of someone. You have to nurture them and let them know it's okay to show off in a different way, because that's really what you're doing in acting. You're kind of showing off.
God, I remember seeing Jerry Lewis in Damn Yankees, and Jerry Lewis was all about the shtick.
Right.
And so what they did is, right before the second act, they would let him do his thing for like 10 minutes. And then you'd have to go back to do the show. And Mickey Rooney was classic for doing that as well.
Right.
He would mug and all this stuff during the performance. But I thought, let's work with Jerry Lewis, let him do what he does, but then let's bring it back to the show so it doesn't distract from the end result.
I'd worked with Mark Rylance, and he's the consummate actor's actor. And when working with Mark, what I saw was the great actors are selfless. They have no ego about it. They're there for the performance. That's the priority. I found Arnold quite similar in many respects. I know that might sound laughable to some people, but there was no ego there. We had one moment where we were on set, and it was in the middle of the shoot, and he had to take off his shirt. And, you know, he came to me and he said, you know, Elliott, I'm a 70-year-old man, and, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm looking my best. And I literally looked around the room and I was just like, you know, you look better than any 30-year-old here. You can't say that to him. You know, you can't say, well, you look better than any 30-year-old. You just say, well, you look appropriate. You look like what you're supposed to. You're reassured, but you know. We didn't want him to look too good. We had a thing where he looked too good. I said, you know, you need to lose some weight. You've got to trim down a little bit. But what I would do is I'd keep giving him pastries. And he's just like, how am I supposed to lose weight every time you're giving me German Christmas cake, you know, and Stollen and strudel? But I don't know. He had no vanity.
And he was very aware of who he was. You know, he there's no illusions with him about thinking he was something other than who he was. He knew his age. He knew where he was at in his life. He knew where his career was. And he had no problem making fun of himself. And once in a while, he'd, you know, to the crew, he would go into some classic character for a few minutes and kind of give the people what they wanted.
I mean, do you think that's what makes a good actor? That to be self-aware and to just dive right in?
I think there is no straight answer to what makes a great actor, because I think that they all have different. I mean, you know, if you work with Mickey Rourke, you know, he's going to bring a certain thing his way. Mark Rylance brings a certain. David Oyelowo brings a certain thing his way. What Arnold brings is his humanity, and his humanity with the way he is with people. You know, they're all different instruments. They're different. You know, it's like comparing Miles Davis, Coltrane. They're just different. When I'm dealing with an actor, I'm not going, oh, you're that kind of actor. I go, well, you're that kind of person. I'm going to treat you the way you need to be treated, or I feel that you need to be treated. You know, no one has there's no, I mean, like, Scoot McNairy is a completely different acting style to Arnold. Very methody, involved and engaged in a metaphysical way. Whereas like Arnold's very studied.
They really just need to be secure enough to have that trust to give as much as they possibly can in the moment, and trust the director enough to go there. And if an actor's not feeling secure in that way, then that's when you're in trouble.
What ultimately did you learn from this process?
Well, I actually learned a lot of things about life from Arnold. And I learned about visions. And I learned about how to attain what you want, because he talks a lot about visions. He talks a lot about, you know, how you can get what you want, and if you visualize it and you build it. And he applies that to everything in his life. There's no talking about the past. There's no regret. I didn't hear any regret from him. There was no reflection back. So, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done this. It was this always constant energy about moving forward, because you can't change it, and it's about what you do next, not what you can't fall back. So I learned a lot about that. I learned that you need more time to make a film, but you always need more time and more shooting days.
Because there's never enough time, is there?
This one was really tough. This was tougher than Nightingale. This is much tougher than Nightingale.
Well, what was the schedule on Nightingale?
Well, Nightingale had like 16, 17 days, but I had a very different infrastructure. I was in one location.
Right. Nightingale played more, it was more like a play.
It played exactly like a play. Fundamentally, Nightingale and Aftermath are two completely opposite films. One is centers around a character who all he does is emote and express. And the other one, which is Aftermath, is about a man who can't capacitate and can't emote and can't express because he's had everything taken away from him. And it's like, well, how do you represent that? I mean, like, for most people, we don't necessarily emote that way. And, you know, this was an observation in stillness. You know, that it's very different because the size of the performance is, you know, is arena-like. Yeah, I wish I'd had more time, but you can't apologize for that, because we made the film, and I think the film is, I love aspects of the film.
But do you think that having that, it's a blessing and a curse? Because you have to make decisions, and you have to go more instinctually.
I've never had a problem in making production decisions or cinematic decisions, but sometimes you need time with the script. We had 6 weeks to prep a film, and I wish we'd had more time. I felt that we needed... Sorry.
There's definitely a point when unlimited resources diminish creativity.
Oh, it does.
There's definitely a point with filmmaking, and there's definitely a point when too limited resources diminish creativity, and you want to be challenged, but you don't want to have your legs cut off.
Straight after doing the movie, I left to go back to the UK to shoot on this show called Will for TNT, which was written by Craig Pearce, who did The Great Gatsby and Strictly Ballroom, Moulin Rouge. You know, we had an $80 million budget. It was a bit of a shock, actually, because I could breathe. I was like, oh, okay, I have time, I have resources, I have the days. It's a different kind of intensity.
You know what's awesome? I just got to tell you this. There's such a difference about you that...
My hair?
No. There's just...
I'm happier.
He really is. I mean, I mean, I love when good things happen to good people.
Right.
And, I mean, there's so many good things that are happening in your life. It's refreshing to see, because I think we live in such times that are so bleak and oppressive that it's good to see when somebody is following their passion and they're making it happen.
Well, you can't give up. That's the thing. You can't stop. You know,
what was the shift for you? What shifted for you, would you say? Was it doing Nightingale?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Nightingale changed my life. You know, David's in my life still, and it was his birthday on Saturday. I went to see him, and we talk about the films that he's made and the films that I've made, and when we talk about that very unique time together and what it meant, and there was something quite out of body. I just didn't expect. Nightingale was like my last breath, to be honest with you. I was ready to give it up.
Right.
I was kind of broken. And you know, the Golden Globes and the Emmy noms and stuff, and it was because it just felt right. And I felt, I know this sounds utterly selfish, but I'd felt vindicated as a filmmaker, which you kind of want. You want to feel that you're doing something right.
Eric, has there ever been a time in your career, I mean, you've done so many hit movies, was there ever a time when you felt that, and how did you keep moving forward?
I definitely took a several-year hiatus, where I was burnt out, honestly, from the process, and I recognized that, and I took a break, and whatever you have to do to recharge your batteries, I'm definitely really enjoying the process again in a way that I'm enjoying more now than I did in the beginning, because I have some perspective on it.
What shifted for you? I mean, how is the process different for you?
It's not so personal for me. Every decision is not, every success or failure does not define who I am. What defines me is outside of my work. My work is my work, and I show up and do my best every day, but it doesn't define who I am.
Do you think that is, as being a producer, it all falls on your shoulders? Is that where that comes from, or is it just, do you set a high bar for yourself?
I definitely set a high bar for myself, but you don't want that part of your mentality to inhibit you from actually showing up and succeeding either. And so to feel like you're not doing good enough can really freeze you in place. And so you have to take that sentence out of your head and just say, well, I'm doing my best today, and honor that and show up and do your best, but don't tell yourself that I'm not a good enough story, because you'll get nowhere with it.
That's interesting, because after all the successes, you would still have those thoughts. So when after you took the hiatus and you came back with a different perspective, what was that like for you?
I mean, it's going on right now, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the process of, Elliott and I are developing several projects together. And
let's talk about the Jackson State. That's a new one for you.
Jackson State is, I was so proud of it. It came out of this idea about, like, what's going on in America that Trump manages to get elected. What is going on and why aren't these people represented on television? Why aren't those stories being told?
And the stories are?
Well, the stories are, in the Rust Belt. Where are they represented? Where are those people? Where are their issues being spoken? So I think, I think politically the one thing that was glaringly obvious is that the Democrats weren't speaking to the base. They were, and I remember when Hillary Clinton came out and said, the Trump supporters are despicable people, and I'm no Trump fan, and I'm no Trump sympathizer. But I think that statement that she made was a lot more penetrative. And what we decided to do was, look, what are the issues facing Middle America? Middle America has a terrible problem with opioid addiction. And it's an area of the country that's largely been forgotten. Their infrastructure's falling apart, their industry's falling apart. What is the thing that's going to keep them together? So we teamed up with this wonderful writer, Scott Lasser, who'd written on True Detective. And we came up with this concept of, a man protecting his minor league baseball team in a small town in Jackson, and where those stories lead. I can't say too much more than that. So we're excited about it, and it's the first project that I've had where I think we sold it in the room. We just sold it in the room. I
think that's an interesting starting point, because what's more American than baseball?
What's more American than baseball? And then, it's something happened during that election, and people were definitely disaffected. And look, I don't want to colour it. It's not a dark, turgid story. It's quite funny and light, actually. But we love that. We're really proud of that. I'm doing Thirst as well with Matt Damon.
Now that's about a water crisis.
That's the water crisis.
So how's that one going?
We're budgeting and scheduling. We're planning to shoot in Brazil.
Is that going to be a documentary? Or?
No, that's a movie.
Oh, it is going to be a movie.
Matt Damon, Ben Affleck producing, and that's HBO Films.
Are you just working non-stop now?
I mean, I've been really, really busy. I mean, Eric and I, we work together, and for me, I think we're working creatively on some of the best things I've ever done. But Eric is able to kind of channel that into really great material, so it's working from that point of view. We have a lot of wonderful stuff, but Nightingale afforded those opportunities. I wouldn't be working with Eric, and I wouldn't be able to come up with better ideas. There's a shift as well. Like, I'm more interested in doing my own material than I am going up for the open directing assignments and doing a movie about a tank.
What ultimately does it mean for you to be a filmmaker? Because the films that we've just talked about, they're really looking at a human condition.
Well,
I mean,
that's
from
exactly
Nightingale to Aftermath to Thirst to the opioid film.
I mean, that's really it. It's about the human condition. It's my impression of that. And, I think that all filmmakers have a different... Some do it because they want to get chicks. Some do it because they want to make a lot of money. I think that, my narrative hopefully will be... I try to comment on the human condition, or at least illustrate the human condition.
Well, so too, Eric, your films. I mean, the films that you've worked on, The Fighter, The Wrestler, Black Swan... A Requiem for a Dream. Those are just, I mean, if anything looks at a human condition, I mean, Requiem for a Dream, that just...
Yeah, the exploration of the human condition is definitely what drives myself to be an artist, and most people I know. It's like, well, why would you go through all the pain of creating this stuff if you weren't exploring something that had value? And this is our lives.
Talking about exploration, you're going to start helming film too, right? You're testing the waters as a director.
Yeah. I have a movie. It's called The Savage. It's basically a Bigfoot movie set in the 1850s in the gold rush.
Bigfoot in the 1850s.
Yep.
And how is Bigfoot?
Well, it's all fantasy needs to be grounded in something plausible, and so I don't believe a Bigfoot story in 2017 at all. But in 1850, I believe, in California gold rush times, I believe there could have been something out there that we didn't know about, we didn't see. And what would that thing be? What would that reality be?
Your experience as a producer, how is that going to impact you as a director?
Well, definitely being very practical about the process, in the sense that I'm not going to write anything or plan anything that I'm not going to be able to accomplish in the process.
Oh, so you've experienced that from the directors you've worked for. How do you handle that when you've got a director that is doing something that is maybe not going to work, and how do you navigate that landscape?
Well, you have to ask the question, what are you going for?
So give me an experience that you had and how you handled it.
The Fountain would be a good example.
Which was a very ambitious film, wasn't it?
But it started off more ambitious.
It did.
It was a much bigger movie the first time around, and we went to make a movie that was going to be $70 million plus, and we ended up not making that movie, and then 2 years later we made a $30 million version of that movie. And so we had to take a budget that was $70 million plus and reduce it to 30, take a screenplay that was $70 million plus and reduce it to 30. And you have to ask the question, well, what are we aiming for? What are we going for? What is the essence of this? And then base your decisions from the answer to that question.
Well, because Pi was made for what, under $70,000, right?
Yeah, to get to the Avid cut was about $60,000.
David Cronenberg, I remember speaking to him, and he talked about freedom in a low budget film.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's a low budget film, then chances are you're going to recoup your money. But the more money that's involved in it, the pressure to be profitable becomes very stressful, and it almost, I would think, gets you away from the craft of filmmaking. Had you experienced that?
The financial pressures can distract from the craft of filmmaking. On a movie like Pi, you go for it. You have no resources, so you just do what you can, and every challenge you have is an opportunity to think of a new idea, a new creativity. There's a thing like if you have all the money in the world and you have a building and you have a character that has to get from one side of the building to the other, you can just blow up the building. But if you don't, they have to make a right and a left and a left and a right, and that's storytelling right there. So the challenges become your storytelling.
So what advice would you give to someone that's starting out that wants to be a producer?
Find good material and learn the process of what a good screenplay is and how to create one. Because without good screenplays, you can't make good movies, and it's certainly the cheapest part of the process.
So was your education by doing?
100%.
100%?
Yeah.
And when you think about your career of the films that you've done, starting with Pi and then moving on, did you take those lessons and apply them to each new project?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And have taught them to anybody that will listen in the process as well. You have to take what you learn and move forward, but you can't let what you've learned inhibit you in the process as well. You can definitely know too much, and then that can stop you from taking risks. You have to still be able to take risks.
And you talked about that negative self-talk,
yeah,
right? That said, look, it's time to take a break. At that moment, how do you work through that talk?
Well, you just can't say, we can't do this. You can always do it. It's just how are you going to get it done? So but if you learn a lot as a producer, at a certain point you get to a place where it's like, well, we can't do that, and we can't do that, and we can't do that. Well, then you're not making a movie. You have to find a way around that and stop saying we can't do that and say, okay, well, how do we do it?
How is the relationship of collaborating on Aftermath and then on the future projects
with Eric?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like the nagging wife, to be honest with you. I have an unfortunate amount of energy.
He's laughing back there.
But it's true. I mean,
I feel bad. Silent laughter.
I feel bad for him at times. I don't see. It's very difficult for me to switch off. I don't switch off.
No, he doesn't, does he?
No, there's no switching off.
Are you more introverted, would you say?
Yes, but producing is definitely a parental role in general.
I do have to ask for permission for things.
Oh, you do?
And by the way, he's usually right. He's usually right, because I tend to be impulsive and do very stupid things.
Elliott brings a lot of energy to the process, which is helpful.
No, he does.
Yeah, so it's a good combination. Like, the energy motivates me, and then I can put it in perspective.
Because it seems like there's almost Eric, you're more grounded, and he's more ethereal. Would you say? Is that?
That's a polite way of saying it. I mean, I bounce off the walls.
You bounce off the wall?
Yeah, it's like, I have a thing that, I get 4 or 5 hours a night sleep. I'm up hiking every morning. I have to do that to calm the chaos inside the mind. But that chaos, when channeled, is, I can be creative. Yeah. I never thought I was creative.
You never did?
No,
even when you were making films early?
What happened with me was I never went to film school. I didn't study film. My brother was the artist in the family. I was a first AD. I worked for Tony Kaye on American History X. I didn't have a grounding in the arts that way. And I became a director later in life. And what's happened is it's a bottleneck. And now I'm 45. And I feel like I'm 18. And I'm getting this energy. It's quite amazing.
Has it changed for you as well from the first film...
Yeah,
through Nightingale to now,
100%.
And how has it changed for you?
Well, I'm not the same person, and I think that you I've evolved. You just evolve in your approach to things. You make better decisions because you've made those mistakes, and hopefully you've learned from those mistakes. I'm not saying that Love Is a Drug was a mistake, because it wasn't, but certainly the next movie won't be treated the same way that one was.
I almost get the feeling that you're less apologetic for who you are.
Maybe. I mean, that might be the awards.
Really?
No, you're 45.
I think what I'm noticing is that you've really stepped in to honor yourself as a creative.
Well, I just, I think you arrive at a certain point in your age and in your career, and you're like, well, this is who I am. That's it. I'm going to stand up. You don't have to. Arnold said something to me. He's like, you go out, you make your work, and if they don't like it, screw them. And it's a very simple statement. It's just like, I'm gonna carry on. I'm gonna carry on. What's that great Teddy Roosevelt thing about the man in the arena? Do you know about the man in the arena?
No.
Yeah. That the man in the arena is he's being hurled at and he's being abused and everybody's criticizing, but he's the one standing up doing it.
The quote that you're referring to is not whether you succeed or fail, it's the fact that you got into the arena at all.
Do you feel self-actualized, Elliott and Eric?
You're probably closer to it than I am.
I don't think that human beings ever fully feel self-actualized.
Right.
I don't know if that's possible. I think if you do, what are you motivated to accomplish from that point?
Now, did you always want to be a producer and be in the film business?
I wanted to be a filmmaker from an early age, but the producing, I read the brochure to the American Film Institute, and the description, I didn't know what producing meant. The description said you take something from content to creation from the beginning to the end. You're involved in every stage of the process. I go, that sounds good. Then I went to AFI and I'm making lasagnas for the crew, and it wasn't exactly what they sold me. But
yeah, that was like the time that they told me to graduate college I had to do an internship, and so I took one at Fox. And I was just by the copy machine.
Oh.
I think I'm sterile from those hours. those hours at the copy machine. And they're going, no, you do these, you'll meet somebody. Who am I going to meet? The lady. It was more like, I was like an indentured servant or something.
Yeah, well, you didn't get paid to be an indentured servant, you paid to be one.
Yeah.
So it's
because I had to pay for the class.
Yeah.
That's an important rite of passage, though.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's your willingness to do that's going to get you to the next place.
Yeah.
You have to do it. We've all done it.
Yeah. What's the one thing that you did? What was your rite of passage?
I mean, I would have to take and do dry cleaning. I would have to pack up the craft service table. I would have to fold chairs. I would have to be up at 4 a.m. in the morning, driving Japanese clients around, and that's what you did. You had to do it because you have to know everybody's job on the crew.
Yeah.
It's fundamental.
Well, that gets back to what Eric was talking about. It's knowing every aspect of it.
And being a PA, for instance, the job Elliott's describing is actually a great perspective to understand the process. Like when I walk onto a set and I want to know what's going on the set, the first thing I'll do is see what the PAs are doing and how they're feeling, because I know that they know everything. They know more than I do, because nobody's hiding anything from the PA.
How do you deal with a difficult set?
I've had them.
Yeah, how do you deal with that?
It can be really difficult. Depends.
Give me the scenario.
I've had actors threaten to hit crew. I've had actors hitting crew.
To hit crew?
Yeah.
I've had Christian Bale?
He didn't hit anyone. I had an actor actually grab and hit someone on the crew. I had an actor threaten me to beat me up. That was interesting.
Would you hire that actor again?
No, God no. but not for those reasons. How do you deal with it? You've got to. But you're the boss.
You avoid it in the first place.
Oh, that's interesting. You don't let it get to that.
You don't let it get to that point.
Well, okay.
Well, it depends how much cocaine and alcohol you consumed the night before. I mean, I had a guy who'd been out partying with Sean Penn all night. So,
but you create in your hiring decisions and in the implementation of the process, you create it in such a way that you don't have a difficult set. That's the job.
Well, is that part of the process when you're looking at potential actors to say, I think this might be a problem, but what if the money people want that actor?
I've had exactly that.
And what happened?
It was a disaster.
What film?
No film that will be discussed, but it was a disaster. I had a really, really difficult time. And then what happens with the money people is that they run away.
Oh, they do?
Because you go, I have a problem here, I need your help. Well, it's your problem, you're the director. I'm like, well, actually, no, I need your help. And they wouldn't. There's nothing they can do. Because the money fears the power of the star. And that's not a good place to be. Long time ago, and I would never allow that to happen now. That would never happen.
Do you think that that's part of a rite of passage as well, to be in those situations?
Of course, because if everything goes too smoothly, then you have Orson Welles syndrome, where you peak at 27 and you never get back to that place. You just can't get back there. I want to make mistakes, and I want to fail, and I want to be challenged, and you have to be challenged.
Well, is that also with your decision to take certain films? Is it to push you and to challenge you?
I don't do things because they're easy. I'm not always right in my decisions, but then my decisions, I live with them. I'd rather get out of bed every day, look at this face in the mirror and go, hey, you know what? You're really messed up there, but hey, the next one you'll be better.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
And just a reminder, you can listen to Center Stage every Tuesday night, right here on KXLU Los Angeles 88.9 FM. We are also streaming on the internet at kxlu.com. Until next time, this is Mark Gordon, and I'll see you Center Stage.